Welcome to Navigating the New Normal Parents Edition, a special created just for parents and brought to you by Noggin from Nick Jr. and Common Sense Media. I'm Jamie-Lynn Sigler, and this is our special guest and lead expert, California Surgeon General, Dr. Nadine Burke Harris.
Hi, everyone.
We're here today because we wanted to create a space where parents could talk about the stress the coronavirus has placed on life with young kids. We're going to answer your questions, give you solutions, and most importantly, remind you that you are not alone.
Hey everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
How do you explain to a 3-year-old why we can't leave the house?
What are the best things for us to focus on academically?
I am a teacher. My daughter is here with me.
Hi, teachers. I miss you.
They are using so much electronic things. Is that a problem?
I can't get them to stay in their beds.
It's kind of difficult getting Bailey to learn, but we're getting it together.
Bye.
Bye.
First up, the basics. How to talk to your child about the coronavirus. Joining us right now to discuss are parents Mary and Alex Agnes.
How's it going?
And also joining us, we have Dr. Jenny Radesky, pediatrician, professor at the University of Michigan, and spokesperson for the American Academy of Pediatrics. So Mary and Alex, tell us a little bit about what your situation is and what you'd like to know.
Our son Dylan is 5 and our daughter Riley is 2. What we're struggling with is kind of towing the line between giving Dylan enough information to be informed and stay safe, but not so much that he's afraid. Of course, the hardest thing for him as a 5-year-old is the indefiniteness of all of this.
One of the things that's really helpful for little ones, because they don't have a sense of how long this is going to go on for, is to really focus, number one, on being honest. And then another thing that's really helpful is to focus on the time period that makes sense for a 5-year-old. What can we do today? What can we do tomorrow? We can focus on activities that can keep them engaged in understanding what's happening right now.
Is it okay for me to say, I don't know right now?
Yeah, that's absolutely okay to say, I don't know. I think that one of the things that we're learning is that it's an opportunity to teach our kids, what do we do when times are difficult and we're not sure what's going on?
One of the big things that I'm sort of worried about is tell Dylan that if he sees a friend, he can't necessarily run up to them.
So for my little ones, my 7-year-old and my 4-year-old, one of the things that we talk about when we say remember social distancing is that we try to make a game of figuring out how far 6 feet is. How far is 6 feet? Is it as long as that hammock? Is it as big as, is it from here to the stop sign? And that helps us to be able to play, still practice social distancing, but doing it in a way that it's not this scary, awful thing. It's more this game that we can all interact with.
As far as like talking to our younger child, who's 2, things are a little bit different. For her, she's less concerned about the details and more bigger picture. Like she can no longer go with mommy to the grocery store. What's the best way to address those bigger picture issues with somebody who has a smaller capacity to understand them?
Explaining rules in really simple language in ways that just say, right now mommy needs to do this by myself, but we can play grocery store later. If you think of the reasons why she loves that experience with you and maybe try to recreate some of those later in your day, it may help her cope with the new limit that's placed.
One of the big struggles parents are facing right now is stress. Their stress, their kids' stress, and how to cope with it all. So joining us now, we have Venus Castro. Venus, you have a 7-year-old son and you're a single parent. Tell us how this has been affecting you two emotionally and any questions you might have.
There's moments that happen where he's kind of seen me cry or be really frustrated, maybe snap, and I get concerned as to like how much is a stress is it okay to witness.
I'm with you, by the way. My son found me crying in the pantry the other day, and I while I needed the release, I felt bad because I felt like, oh no, is he going to feel like I can't handle this situation?
Number one, that this does give us a chance to model for our kids what it's like when we're feeling really sad, when we're feeling really overwhelmed. And you know what? Sometimes it means that we're going to cry. But the really important thing is how we come back together. Letting go of the notion that as parents, we always have to have it 100% together 100% of the time. It speaks to the issue that self-care isn't selfish. Our well-being as parents is really important, and it impacts the way that we parent, the way that we respond when our kids have questions.
I know that he knows I'm human, and I'm okay with that. But considering this situation of a pandemic, I still feel like I want him to know that I got him, that he's safe with me.
It just shows that you're thinking so hard about what your kids need right now. And when you're thinking hard about what your kids need during a stressful time, you're doing awesome. So don't worry about it. Don't be hard on yourself. The act of messing up actually lets you repair with your kids and actually say, oh, I'm sorry I yelled at you. I was just feeling like so full of tension because of X, Y, or Z.
How can we help kids process emotions that maybe they don't fully understand? For example, we did a little drive-by for one of my son's friends' birthdays. They stayed in their driveway, we stayed in the car, we sang happy birthday, we talked for about 15-20 minutes. And then when we drove away, I turned around and I just saw he was bawling in the backseat of the car, and I was trying to ask him what was wrong and he couldn't articulate it. I just can't imagine how difficult it can be when they can't understand what they're going through.
Emotions are complicated for grown-ups to understand too, and you can have many of them at one time. I actually find that kids understand emotions better in terms of colors and pictures. So I use a curriculum called Zones of Regulation. It has all these nice visuals that I draw out, where if you're in the blue zone, you're feeling kind of bored and cranky or just sad. When you're in the green zone, you're calm and relaxed and focused. When you're in the yellow zone, you're kind of silly or amped up or agitated. And then red zone is out of control. And the other nice thing about this is that we can say, you're in the yellow zone. How can you get back down to green? That's one approach you can take with a young kid, where those colors kind of really resonate with them as a way of thinking through what's a really abstract concept.
Dr. Burke-Harris, do you have any advice on helping families combat stress during this time?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really important for parents and kids to understand that when we're feeling more stressed, it isn't just all in our heads. That during this time, our bodies may actually be making more stress hormones, but there are simple things that we can do every day at home to help to regulate the amount of stress hormones that our bodies make. Regular exercise every day, even if it's just an indoor dance party. Sleep, having those regular hours of going to bed and waking up at the same time, keeping to that routine is really important. Mindfulness, that really helps to regulate us and kind of calm our nervous system down. Nutrition, social supports, having those safe and stable relationships are really important. And for those who are finding themselves really struggling, now is a great time to reach out to get mental health support.
So Dr. Radesky, a lot of parents are also worried about what to do if their kids get sick during this time, not with COVID. And so should they go to the doctor, or is that risky right now?
It's understandable that parents feel nervous about going to the doctor. If you're unsure and you're feeling worried about bringing your child in for a checkup or vaccinations or an injury, it's really important to reach out to your child's pediatric provider and just ask, say, I'm nervous about COVID. What are you doing to keep things clean, to keep kids separated?
Dr. Radesky, we're going to have you stick around, but Venus, Mary, and Alex, thank you all so much for joining us and sharing your stories.
Thank you for having us.
For a full breakdown on how to help get your families through the stress of the pandemic, visit the American Academy of Pediatrics parenting website, healthychildren.org, and check out the California Surgeon General's playbook, Stress Relief for Caregivers and Kids During COVID-19.
Esta guía sobre cómo manejar el estrés también estará disponible en español. Para más recursos en español sobre coronavirus, visite lulac.org y busque el hashtag Ayuda en Español en las redes sociales.
Juggling parenting, work, and your kids' homework has never been easy, but COVID-19 stay-at-home orders have made it that much harder. So how to balance it all while making sure your kids don't fall behind? Joining us now are a couple of parents who have those exact questions. Jennifer McCann and Kayla Fernandez.
Hi.
So Jennifer, you are working from home. You're full-time. You have 2 school-age kids. So tell us what it's been like to juggle all of that and what questions do you have for our experts?
Okay, it has been crazy. I have a 6-year-old in kindergarten and a 2nd grader in special education. So the curriculum for both of them is totally different. How do you manage getting the workload done and giving individual attention to each of the kids?
If it feels like a lot, it's because it is a lot. So I want to acknowledge that. A lot of us who we have our checky boxes and our lists and all of that kind of stuff, we may not get as much done as we would hope to. So just start by giving yourself a break. You can tell your spouse or your partner, whatever, or yourself, the Surgeon General of California says it's okay for you to give yourself a break.
If you don't, you run the risk of burning out. This is going to be months and months. We're not really sure when it's going to let up. And if we try to overdo everything and check off all those usual boxes that we would when life is normal, then you might actually risk making yourself overly anxious. Lower your expectations of yourself and of your kids and just focus on the few things that you think really matter.
Okay, Kayla, so you and your husband are both working from home, right? And you have 3 kids. And your youngest, you say you've been struggling with the most, who's 3. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So my husband, I, and our 3 kids have all been home since March 13. So we're going on 7 weeks now. It's not realistic to have a 3-year-old in front of a computer for hours on end. My 3-year-old doesn't know how to manage the trackpad on the laptop. If there's an activity where he gets the answer wrong and until he gets it right, he can move on to the next step, I have to sit there and show him. So these are all things that are very time consuming. He's extremely rambunctious. I love him, but he drives me up a wall. So, he requires a different level of attention. Meanwhile, I have to submit a timesheet every day showing 8 hours worth of work so I can continue to get paid. So it's just been very difficult, and I could definitely use any advice I can get.
So the first thing I want to say is I feel your pain. My husband and I have 4 boys. One of the things that I've heard of is some parents actually take shifts. It's simply not possible to be a full-time employee and a full-time educator and a full-time parent all at the same time.
I was just going to add that it's really okay to ask teachers if there's some flexibility around the tasks that have been assigned, and also to just make some decisions, some executive decisions on your own about what's going to work for your family.
It's funny that you say that because I know how important structure is for kids with special needs, and trying to give him all those accommodations has been very overwhelming for myself. So thank you for saying that and reassuring us that we can prioritize accordingly in our house. That makes me feel better.
Of course. And also remember that we're not all trained as teachers and educators, and it's not actually normal for us to be around our kids all day. They need independence from us, and we need independence from them. So It's okay to be a little creative about what we set up our day as. The first week, when we had no idea what we were doing, my husband did paper airplanes with my 6 and 10-year-old, and they just futzed around with it for, a couple hours, and we called it science class. So you can be a teacher in those ways, and those life skills matter just as much as the sight words or math facts that your child, is maybe missing out on right now.
For me personally, my concern isn't really about my son struggling academically. My real concern is how this is going to affect them socially. He's in pre-K. It was his first time being in a school environment. So the majority of the day he was spending away from me with other adults, with kids his age. And now he has 7 weeks where the only adult interaction he's had is with me and my husband. So I just worry once he's out there in the real world again, if he's going to experience any anxiety being away from us after being with us every day. So those are the things that really concern me.
I think the way that we set kids up for success to do that is to really try and work on their flexibility. When you're playing with them, you can work on turn taking, flexibility, seeing things from someone else's perspective, working together on something, following commands, following steps, and finishing something out, not losing your attention span. All those things will help kids with the re-entry process. And kids are resilient. They will bounce back from a lot of this. So I don't want people worrying about long-term damage.
I just wanted to ask a question that I think a lot of us are wondering about, and I think it just plays into all the things we've been asking, which is screen time.
My question is about screen time.
Screen time.
Screen time. Screen time.
Screen time.
Screen time.
Screen time? What's like an okay amount?
I have a 6-year-old who started kindergarten this year, so it was his first year at school. He's doing well in his Zooms, but for the majority of his work, I have to sit there with him. I have a 2-year-old little boy who is like the definition of a toddler boy. I mean, just rambunctious and wild, very little attention span on anything. So a lot of the time I have to hand him an iPad or hand him my phone where he just scrolls videos of himself. Otherwise, my toddler's on top of the dining room table swinging from the chandelier, literally. So I try not to be too hard on myself, but I just, at the end of the day, still feel so guilty the amount of screen time that he's getting.
I want parents to know that we're all going to have a lot more time in front of screens during this pandemic, and it's because we need them. I don't even like the word screen time because it only talks about duration. We're not talking about all the other things that matter. One way to think about this is promoting the 3 C's. So the first C is, who is your child? Are they the sort of child who becomes obsessed with certain media and needs a lot of rules? Or are they pretty easygoing? The second C is content. Pro-social content helps our kids think about new things and positive ways of problem solving. Violent content really just riles them up and makes it hard for them to sleep. It's a good idea to choose something positive like Blue's Clues and You.
So, Blue, what do you want to do with our friends today?
3 is context. So you are one of the parts of your context. You know, how are you watching or talking with your child about what you're seeing? Another part of context is, what emotions were you feeling right before you started using media? I hope that reduces the guilt. Guilt we often feel when we feel powerless or we feel like we're not meeting up to some expectation. There is no expectation right now because this is so different than what we've ever experienced before.
I like to call it screen time equals me time sometimes.
So if there's one thing that I would say for parents is just to let go of the guilt. If you could have a moment, especially for your own self-care, it's okay to relax a little on the screen time so that you can have that time.
Jennifer, Kayla, and Dr. Radesky, thank you so much for being with us.
It feels good to know I'm not alone here.
If you're looking to help fill the educational gap while your child is at home, check out Wide Open School, an online resource from Common Sense Media that's helping parents, students, and teachers make the most out of remote learning. Classes are out, play dates are off, and after-school activities are canceled. So how do you keep your kids happy, engaged, and learning when they're not able to leave the house? Moms and dads, it's time to get creative.
Oli, oli.
Joining us now is Dr. Kathy Hirsh-Pasek, professor of psychology at Temple University.
Hi.
And we also have a couple of parents with their own creative ideas and questions. Marcus Strickland.
Hi.
And Angie Villavicencio.
Hi.
Marcus, you have been very creative with your family, and you even had to step in with learning when your kid's school wasn't able to come through. So tell us a little bit about what that's been like.
Well, it's been a struggle because there's 5 kids here of various ages from 16 down to 2. So it's a constant battle of trying to keep everybody engaged when they all have different learning levels and different interests. So when they first told us that school was shut down, we would watch documentaries and then we'd talk about them afterwards. We'd also do cooking, we'd do measured baking, and we've all been learning a foreign language together. Plus, we make videos when we have time.
Have you ever had a dream that you once?
Marcus, how accurate is this video?
Pretty accurate. This is one of my daughters.
One thing to keep in mind is that play and learning aren't really separate. First of all, believe it or not, one of the things that helps kids learn math is being able to recognize a pattern. So to follow a pattern when you do a hand clapping game or a simple board game has the kids roll the dice. Oh yes, they have to add. And a simple game of Simon Says, teaching self-control.
So Angie, you guys have been having weekly events at your home. So could you tell us about some of them and how you came up with the idea?
Well, we are a blended family. My husband has 2 kids that are older, 10 and 7, and together we have a 2-year-old. We actually had Disneyland tickets, hotel and everything for spring break. So we were like, what do we do now? No problem, we'll do Disneyland at home. So we decided to create these weekly events. Everybody got involved. We went to Chuck E. Cheese. We go to the movies. We just did a color run.
Welcome to the first annual color run. Yeah!
We just wanted to give them something good to remember in the middle of all the madness. I think the buildup is the most fun part. Even if the event lasts 30 minutes, the whole week we were thinking about it and doing crafts and thinking what we were going to wear, which is giving us a little bit of excitement in a moment that's not really that exciting right now.
What's the plan for next weekend?
We're going to go to Legoland.
Love it.
Yeah.
These ideas are awesome. They sound like so much fun. I wish I could come over to your house. I heard some great advice that it's good to have one activity that your child leads, one activity that you lead, and one activity that you get to discover together.
Marcus, Angie, and Dr. Hirsh-Pasek, thank you so much for joining us. We are looking forward to seeing what other creative ideas you all came up with. Thank you so much. Parents, we know the coronavirus has turned all of our lives upside down, and we hope the answers and resources we provided here today are helpful. But the truth is, we're all just trying to figure it out. Parenting looks a lot different right now than it ever has before, and while navigating this new normal, it can sometimes be frustrating. It's important to remember the positive moments that have come from it too. So moms and dads, hang in there. Don't be so hard on yourselves, and remember that no matter what the pandemic may bring, we're all in this together. Dr. Burke Harris, thank you so much for joining us. And that's it for our show. Stay safe, everyone.
Hi, I'm Kristen Kane. I lead the team at Noggin, the learning service from Nick Jr. Every day we work hard to create content full of learning and laughter with characters kids love. Many of us have kids of our own and have really been struggling with how to parent right now. So we went to the experts for the advice we need and put this show together so we could share it with you. We hope it helps you as much as it's helped us. Thanks for watching.